How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of High Strangeness. Today, we're going to be coming with you guys, or to you guys, with an episode of the Art Bell Show. I'm sure you guys have heard of Art Bell. If you're in this space, you know who Art Bell is, obviously. He had the very popular show Coast to Coast. It was on for many years while he was on it. And then it was taken over by George Norrie, and that show is still running today. But if you guys know who Art Bell is, you'll obviously know all of that. This interview he did is with Father Malachi Martin. This was back in 1998, as you can see. And Father Malachi Martin was obviously a priest. Give a little bit of background about him. He was attached to the Vatican for a while, advisor to a couple popes, was an exorcist as well within the church. Did so for about 35 years or so, I believe, before he was, I'm going to say before he was murdered as well. There's a lot of different theories as to how he ended up dying or like why or when. There's a lot of crazy stories as well about his life and things that he was doing outside of the church as well, and even while he was with the church. But all that aside, this is an interview with him that they're speaking about the murder, satanic murder, according to Father Malachi Martin, of a priest in Dane, Wisconsin, by the name of Alfred Kunz, Father Kuns. He was murdered late at night in his room as well. And this is kind of them discussing, I guess, the finer details that Father Malachi Martin is going to be going over as well. And then we'll kind of jump into a couple of headlines about it. It'll be 24 years this October that it happened, and it's still an unsolved case. Not a cold case, but it's still unsolved. So we'll be jumping into that as well. So let's hop in here. Also, if you guys aren't already subscribed to the channel, please consider hitting that subscribe button, giving us a thumbs up, as well as turning on that bell icon so you don't miss episodes like these in the future as well. We'll have links to all the social media and everything down below.
Father Martin, welcome back to the program.
Good morning, Art, and how are you?
I am very well. Better than the news. I want to tackle right away, Father, a couple of breaking kind of news stories. One, I started getting messages that an exorcist, one that you may know, was very brutally murdered in America. What do you know about that, Father?
Yes, the man we're both thinking of, his name was Alfred Kunz, and he was a parish priest in Dane, which is a parish in Ohio, in Milwaukee, in Wisconsin.
Wisconsin, all right.
In Wisconsin, and he was found at 7 o'clock in the morning with his throat cut from ear to ear.
His throat cut?
Yeah, from ear to ear, in his own blood, face down into it, and with obviously various acts of desecration of his body, which are normally associated with Satanist-inflicted death. Father Kuns, of course.
I know this is neither here nor there, but out of all the worst possible ways that you could die, for me personally, it's a tie between drowning and getting your throat cut, because you're fully aware of what's going on. You're aware of the fact that you're dying or in the process of dying, and there's nothing that's going to save you, really, especially when you get your throat cut. But obviously, I've never drowned or I've never had my throat cut, thank God. But those would probably be my two, tied for the two worst ways to die. But that's neither here nor there. Let me know what you guys think. Here we go.
And by the way, he was a very popular parish priest with his people. He had done exorcisms, but very, very private. Most of us don't talk about them because they usually involve confessional material. And Father Kuns was a very good priest and never spoke about confessional material.
Had he been in communication with you?
Yes, we had been in communication.
Do you know offhand if he was doing anything at the time? I'm sure the police are probably asking about this, but I mean, it's an obvious question.
they are, and they are refusing to give any of the more lurid details of the mode of his death, for the simple reason that they don't want to. They suspect it's somebody within his vicinity, not a stranger. And there are only, I think, a couple of hundred people. Well, no, about 700, 800 people involved. There's certainly not a random act of violence, somebody who wanted to steal or was caught in the act of stealing and simply flailed out. They're convinced it wasn't a random act like that. That was a deliberately set up thing. And that at least one person was involved in it, perhaps more. Kunz himself had just been doing radio shows with a priest friend whom we all know very much, Father Fiore, and they returned home late at night, late being about 10 o'clock in the evening, and we know that he was alive at 10:30 because he made a telephone call or received a telephone call, I forget which. But then the following morning at 7 o'clock, a young man who came to assist him at Mass, etc., found him lying, as I said, in his own blood with this very, very sinister mode of death etched on his body. There's no doubt about it that it is related. Whether it's related to his very confidential activity as a priest in regards to covens of warlocks in neighboring areas, we may never know. We may never know. We may never know because, number one, the police have a habit in this country that whenever there's, and it's a good habit on the whole, whenever there is any real Satanist activity of a shocking kind, they don't publish the details that indicate the Satanist connection.
Which makes a lot of sense because I wasn't able to find a whole lot of articles or reports on the fact that it was anyway related to exorcisms or anything demonic or anything like that, which is good. Obviously, I don't want to publish that kind of stuff online, but everything that you'd see or that I found in articles was other things that were maybe slightly related. I think I saw one story that he was having affairs with some of the women in his church and other kind of stuff that was like financially related issues or other stuff like that. And I mean, you never know. Obviously, I don't put it past a lot of people. The church as well isn't innocent from a lot of things. As a Roman Catholic myself, it's kind of hard for me to have the church's back, and there's a lot of reasons why I don't go to church anymore, and I don't consider this pope my pope, and there's a lot of crazy things happening in the church that it's forced a lot of us to turn our backs on the church, which is hard to do. It's hard to say, but to be a true believer, you can't stand by and go along with the things that that they're doing or they have done, especially when it comes to like the priests and pedophilia and all that kinds of crap. That shit just doesn't fly, and being a Roman Catholic myself, it's not good that the church finds these things out and then all they do is just like repurpose them or place them in another city in charge of another church or whatever, and they never get dealt with like they should. So that's very unfortunate, but I wasn't able to find a whole lot of stuff related to this issue concerning warlocks or any kind of exorcism stuff, anything related. So that makes a lot of sense.
They just they published the bare details of a murder.
Why do you think that, Father?
Well, it's also, you're asking me why I think it's a good idea in general, because it doesn't evoke the copycat syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
These things do, because about 300 years, 200 years ago, they stopped doing exorcisms in public precisely because it evoked the copycat syndrome in people, imitators.
Well, you have told me many times, since you have done so many exorcisms, that there is real very serious, very real danger, is it not possible? It's got to be possible that in his work, in some way, in the middle of some exorcism, or as part of an ongoing one, or who knows?
I have no doubt about the answer to your question. I can foresee and interpret is no doubt about it. The death was not random. It was not an act of personal vengeance, somebody who got annoyed at him for some particular thing. It was in connection with his work as a priest and in the area of demonic possession.
Father, have you ever been concerned at that level? Have you ever, without being specific, because I know you can't about specific exorcisms, but have you ever been concerned for yourself in
very
same way?
Very same way. But you learn after a certain time to take that added risk, and you take precautions. But yes, surely, and at times the menace or the threat is more patent or obvious than at other times. Sure. And sometimes it's quite voluble, it's quite expressive. You're warned. And more than one good priest in that part of the world, especially one or two very prominent ones, got telephone calls pointing out that they will go the same way.
Oh?
Yes, and one of them actually had to hire a bodyguard, or was given a bodyguard by the police because of his prominence.
Well, you've been a very prominent exorcist. Have you received threats?
Oh, yes, in the past, yes. Not recently, but in the past, yes, very much.
Not as part of this or connected?
No, not part of this, because I wasn't in any way related to this. And as one person told me, sort of happily, because we don't belong to an umbrella organization, exorcists, in other words, those engaged in this area, because we don't belong to an umbrella organization, they can't identify every one of us and therefore pick us off. But they do, we are picked off, all right, there's no doubt about that. And they're not the first. Father Kuns is not the first priest who was picked off as a priest and as somebody who blocked or interfered with or spoiled Luciferian plans. There's no doubt about that.
Well, the fact that he is now dead would tell me that Luciferian plans are somehow still underway in whatever case.
Oh, yes. Oh, I'm sure they are. I'm sure they are.
Is evil in America, evil in the world, increasing?
Well, the only way I can answer that question without sort of sensationalism, Art, is as follows, that since 1972 or 3, when the group I'm associated with started, it's a very quiet, discreet.
When he mentions the group that when he says the group that he's associated with, so he's part of or was at that time part of the Jesuits, or remained so until he died. I don't remember, but the Jesuits was like a religious order within the church. They have, the Jesuits, and then the Dominicans or whatever. They just have like different groups and stuff. So that's what he means when he says the group that he was associated with.
Group, but since then, incidences and types of demonic assault have increased. First of all, the increase has been about 750%. Since that time,
750%.
About 750, judging by figures. And this is in the northeast corner of America, the tri-state area, essentially, although it takes in outlying areas too. But then the types of possession, we have now the two phenomena that are very interesting. We have the phenomenon of the 20-something or 30-something that comes and says, look, Father, I wanted such and such a job, or I wanted to get this particular woman. I wanted to make this marriage.
Yes.
I wanted this money. And I made a pact with Satan, with the devil, and I got it. Now he won't let go of me. This didn't occur before, in my experience, in the limited experience I had. And secondly, then there's
This is how recent, this phenomenon, how recent?
The last 10 years.
The last 10 years.
Last 10 years.
That's wild. Yeah, so, so he was murdered that time, got his throat cut. And like I said, up until today, it's still an unsolved case. Not a cold case, which means they're still actively working in that case. But coming October of 2022 will be 24 years that he was murdered, right? It's murdered March 4th, 1998. So wait, so it's already been 24 years. Yep. So going on 25 next March if it's not solved. But yeah, we'll take a look at this article. This is from a newspaper in Madison, Wisconsin, madison.com, in the news section. Dane County, still unsolved 23 years. Murder of Father Alfred Kunz, not a cold case, authorities say. So actively working it, which is great. I'll just read a little bit of it. This is written by Jeff Riggles in the Wisconsin State Journal, March 4th, 2021. So it's a couple of years old, or last year, I'm sorry. I'll link this article as well in the show notes. You guys can go ahead and read that if you want. This is Kuntz, the priest at St. Michael's Catholic Church in Dane, died after his throat was slit during a confrontation in a hallway near his sparse living quarters inside the church's school sometime between 10:30 p.m. March 3rd and 7 a.m. March 4th, 1998. The murder that has received national attention is one of the county's more famous and controversial unsolved cases. The sheriff's office said in a statement Thursday that detectives continue to work on the case, respond to tips, and use new technology to process evidence, and they believe they have viable suspects in the homicide and continue to look for that one piece of evidence and or information that will bring Kunz's killer to justice. The murder weapon has not been found. Anyone who has information, they have a number as well if you guys want to call that up if you have any information. And I'll link that as well down below. Yeah, it's rough. I mean, I can just imagine, if you're in the church at all, I can imagine local groups that are Satanists and believe in the devil and all that kinds of stuff. I'm sure they harass local priests or whatever, but if you're in the Vatican and you do exorcisms, you probably have an even bigger target. And I know nowadays, I'm not sure exactly how you go about becoming an exorcist nowadays. If you listen to any of the other interviews that Father Martin put out, he kind of went through how he got to become an exorcist, what the church was like back in those days, having to become a priest and the classes they have to take and all kinds of stuff. It sounds actually a lot harder than going through military training, if you can go through boot camp and stuff, but that's the kind of stuff that they went through. And nowadays, even at this point in time, in the late 90s, he was already talking about how a lot of priests in the church and the Vatican cardinals and such don't even believe in the devil or believe that the devil exists, which seems like an odd kind of thing, right? If you're a priest and you believe in God, how can you now believe in that there's no devil? Or maybe they don't believe in either. So it's kind of a weird thing that happens, or that has happened and continues to happen. Me personally, I don't think that a lot of things that happen nowadays in the world is related to mental illness. It might be, a few cases here and there, but for me personally, I think it's more demonic than anything else. Mental illness plays a role in it, sure, but I think modern society feels like, especially a certain group of people in the country feels, and I'm talking about the intellectual side of things, feels like they're too smart or too, I don't know the word, they feel like they're above the fact that they don't have to believe in God. They think it's it's funny that that people still believe in God, or they find it offensive that there's God out there, and then they make fun of people that believe in God, atheists and all these people, and they just shit all over God all the time. I see it all the time online. It's like, oh, where's your God now? Or like, oh, you believe in God, you're an idiot, or like religion is like the root of all evil on the earth and this and that. And to some degree, there might be a case for it here and there. There's definitely been a lot of atrocities committed on behalf of certain religions, and still goes on today. Certain areas of the world, which ones you are. But I believe a lot of crap that happens in the world today can be attributed to demonic possession, obsession, making pacts with the devil or whatever, and just generally falling away from God's grace over the years. It's been a slow decline. Certainly from when I was born in the 80s up until now, God has slowly been milked from every institution, schools and sporting events and everything. You can't even say, I believe in God. You can't even pray on the field. You go to court, they sue you, and you have to go through court cases just because you said a little prayer on the field here and there. So it's definitely done deliberately. I don't think it's just a coincidence, but yeah, that's what they were kind of setting us up for, and it's working. Just look at what happened here in Texas. Obviously, all those innocent children were killed, but that kid that did the shootings, I wouldn't say kid, he was an adult, but there's stories about him torturing animals, and he was abused. Like, not his family wasn't all together, and he wasn't living with his mom, so there was something going on there. He was living with his grandparents. He would get bullied, and just all kinds of crazy stuff. Now, that's obviously a recipe for huge disaster, but there was something else brewing in that kid, and it was a terrible thing to hear and see, especially here in Texas. But yeah, it's definitely it can definitely be chalked up to Satanism and stuff like that. So I don't know, guys. I'll drop the link to the episode as well below for this interview. If you guys want to check it out on YouTube, you can find it on Spotify as well, which is where I listen to it a lot. Yeah, check out his interviews. I have a lot of Father Malachi's books as well. He has a really good book on the fall of the Roman Catholic Church and how it kind of started to degrade in the late 70s. Obviously, throughout time, it's been pretty shitty, the church. But one of the weirdest things I found out, that the first 18 popes, I don't know if anybody knew this, but the first 18 popes after the death and the rise of Jesus Christ, those first 18 popes that they had within the church, they were all murdered, which was crazy, until Rome made Christianity like their official religion, and it was all fine after that. But those first 18 popes, I don't know how you would want that job. So that was like one of the crazier things I found out. But yeah, I'll have everything linked down below. If you guys enjoy what we do here, go ahead and give us a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button if you guys aren't already subscribed to the channel. Be looking out for future episodes of the Truth Defender podcast. We'll be throwing some out here and there. More High Strangeness on the way. The links to our social media down below, as well as our email address. If you guys want to shoot us an email, have any guest or topic recommendations, you can go ahead and do that. I really appreciate you guys' time. I hope you guys have a great weekend. It's Memorial Weekend, so everybody should be off from work. 3-day weekend, I know I am, which is going to be great. So yeah, guys, everybody stay safe out there, stay blessed, and most of all, stay frosty.